Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, international speaker, longtime coach in professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series. And I'm out with my new book, Leading Winning Teams by Wiley Business. Super excited to launch that coming up in August. That can be pre-bought right now. There are links in the bottom to get that book, and we are doing a big kind of push for bulk sales. So if you need a speaker with bulk sales to sell the book, bring them into your team. I am there to help you out, and you can do that and discount that speaking a ton. It's a great economic way to get a speaker for your next event and just a dynamic knock them out, and we'll do it. But today on the Winners Find a Way show, I am thrilled to welcome my man, Amobi Okugo. Amobi, what's up, man?
How you doing, Coach Trent? How you feeling? Thanks for
Man,
having me.
you know I'm live. I'm always feeling good. And listen, I'm super excited to talk to Amobi. Amobi's an entrepreneur and longtime athlete, West Coast dude, which I love, and UCLA man, and he's been around a little bit. Played in the MLS for 4 teams, pro soccer for over 12 years. And man, I'm such a huge soccer fan, and I never played. I've never played the
It's not
game.
too late. It's not too late.
Not think it's too late for me, man. I shouldn't say that, but like I play a lot of hockey. I'm 54 years old. I'm thinking like, man, the running thing, I think like my hamstrings are just done with it, right? I think they're like, man, I don't know if you should be sprinting anymore. But it is a such a great game. The beautiful game as they call it, right? And you have this business, Serve Consulting. Talk to me a little bit about Serve Consulting because you guys have been serving the athlete community. I mean, you were already in it, seeing gaps in the community that really needed serving. And then you're coming in behind that to really backfill some things for young athletes. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a great testament to what we're trying to do. Essentially, serve the athletes. Fortunately, I had my own experience as a professional athlete, so I saw firsthand, what athletes were doing right. Sorry, what athletes were doing wrong, and where they can fill in the gaps, or where we can fill in the gaps for these athletes. Me and my business partner, Underserve, we truly believe every athlete is an enterprise. So we want to help athletes, with their go-to-market strategies, with their ability to monetize their vision, and ultimately help them leverage their capital and their career. And then on the
Yeah, I
brand
think,
side,
yeah, cool.
sorry, and then on the brand side, just help them with their go-to-market strategies. That's essentially it.
For sure. Tell them where they can find you first, Amobi. Let's do that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so basically, you can find me on all platforms: Moby Okugo, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Amobi says is my name. Our website is www.serve.consulting, and yeah, we respond right away, and we always try to figure out ways we can serve. If we can't serve, then we can put you in touch with somebody that can as well.
I'm a longtime tennis guy, man. And when I think serve, I'm like, let's go, man. It's a chance to control what's going on. It's my serve, and I lead the way on that. And I love that. You've been a really great educator over the years. One of the things I love about what you're doing, also being in the NIL education space is the athlete CEO, man. I love the fact that young athletes now are really diving into this business aspect of athletics. And I think when we were young, there wasn't the opportunity, right, at
Yeah,
university to make any money. I mean, certainly scholarship, there was all sorts of things, there was a lot of advantages. I don't want to discount that, but the business side was missing. And man, as this culture has become very entrepreneurial, which I have a lot of passion for, you have a lot of passion for. I love that athletes are getting very well educated at a young age about marketing, brand development, customer service, sales, deals, and contracts, how those work. I mean, that would have been very helpful for me when I was in the professional game because you and I both had about a similar time in that area. And there's a lot of contracts and there's a lot of talk. And
yeah,
then what's written is very different, right?
yeah.
You're like, oh, hey, wait a minute. I thought you said this was going to happen. And if it's not in that contract, as you and I probably learned the hard way, it turns out doesn't really matter what anybody said.
You're exactly right. Business is business. There's no such thing as a handshake agreement. It has to be written, it has to be signed, and it has to be negotiated upon. So, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And unfortunately, sometimes we have to learn the hard way. We trust what a coach would say or trust what a GM would say, but at the end of the day, it's what the contract states. And yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Well, one of the things I find with a lot of athletes, Moby, and I find with a lot of high performing people, top 2%, and that's mostly who I work with, right? I find a lot of people are children of immigrants, came over to America, and with an opportunity, their parents worked very diligently, very hard, never took advantage of the opportunity they received here, instilled that in their children. You're one of four children born to parents of Nigeria.
Yep.
Yeah. And so Amobi, walk me through that as a kid. Like, hey, you don't know any different. Like
Yeah.
you didn't live in Nigeria for a long time or at any length of time, right? So you've got California. Like, hey man, this is what I
Yeah.
know. California and soccer's a good sport in California. So you were in the right place. But I'm sure your parents have a very different perspective of life before California. Is that fair?
No, that's super fair to say. Yeah, being a first generation Nigerian American and then being the oldest of that, I felt like the guinea pig. So, like you
Yeah.
said, grew up in California, but raised like from a Nigerian culture. So I'm learning things at the same time my parents were kind of learning things in terms of, the American way, which is a culmination of so many different cultures coming together, which was great. And very blessed, me and my siblings for the sacrifices and the upbringing my parents provided. And like you said, the correlation between, some of the successful people you work with and fortunately, some of the success that I've been able to have is because of that stern cultural upbringing that my parents instilled, whether it's Nigerian or any other cultures, but for me specifically, my Nigerian culture.
Yeah, stern is an interesting word, man. I mean, there's let's break that down a little bit for a minute for me because first of all, I like the word. Often negative connotation, but when I think of stern, I think of power words like discipline,
Yep.
accountability,
Yep.
earned, never given,
Yep.
um, probably very little leeway for error. There's a way, and we do it the right way, or we don't do it. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's you hit the nail on the head. In terms of discipline, structure, accountability,
Structure, good word.
making sure that things were earned. So, like, I didn't get allowance growing up, and I don't know if it's my parents didn't even know like
Yeah,
allowance was a thing. Like, you're just supposed to do your chores. You don't get rewarded to do your chores.
yeah.
Education was paramount. Education opens the doors. It's not like saying. Um, Education's the only way, but it was basically like you never want to use education as an excuse for why you didn't get in somewhere. So they were very big on education, accountability, treating everyone with respect, especially elders. Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Thank you, Mrs. So and so. Thank you, Mr. So and so. So it'd be, yeah, it was like you said, stern, but in all those characteristics that you stated.
Well, you think about that. I know you're not a parent yet.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm a parent of like five children,
love
and
that.
I'm as a father. I mean, instilling those kind of values today is very difficult. Like that is not what their friends are taught, and um, and I was taught what you were taught. I mean, my parents are not from Nigeria.
Mm.
They are Indiana Bible Belt parents. And man, it was very firm. We never made an allowance. Being a part of a large family meant doing your part to help out, and we were both the same, six family of six. You were on the front end, I was on the back end, and I was, like you're probably youngest brother. I was spoiled, man. I mean, my parents.
I was waiting for you to say it. I was
Yeah,
waiting for you to
man. I
say
mean,
it.
I was so blessed. Like so I think this is why I became good, Amobi. Like this is really a big deal, and I tell a lot of people this. Like my older brothers were 4 and 6 years older than me, so I grew up playing sports with kids that were 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
So, and that was constant because, we need another player on a team, right? At the ball field, at the park. And so I became like, the last choice, but I got on a team, right? And, but soon, before long, I became pretty good. And all of a sudden, I'm not the last choice, even though I'm not the biggest. And then, organized sports weren't so big when I was a kid. I'm older,
Yeah.
so, you don't start playing till you're 10, 11, 12, till you really start playing higher level competition.
Yeah.
And it's not like, now, hey, we got 4-year-olds. Let's get these guys in an organized
Oh,
soccer team with uniforms and travel.
don't get me
Like,
started
hey,
on
bro,
that.
they're 4.
That's a whole
let's
nother
let's go
topic.
easy, man. And
Yeah.
um, so man, when I finally started playing travel sports, with 12-year-olds, I was like, oh my gosh, how easy is this? I've been
Yeah.
playing with kids that are 18 and like kids my age. Are you serious? Like this
Yeah.
is this is easy. And of course, my parents were now established, right? They'd worked hard, they'd saved their money. They had kids that were, off through college, and they were seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, and they were reducing some of that sternness, I think,
Yeah.
had been reduced on the youngest because they're like, yeah, he probably gets it. He's been watching it a long time. And and I think I got a benefit of that. But what a valuable education to me to watch my parents watch, kind of the mistakes I think that all parents kind of make with their firstborn. You're kind of going through it, trying to figure it out, and you're trying to navigate your way through this thing called life. And I'm watching, by the way, all the game film. All my brothers and
Yeah.
sisters, they're playing sports, and I'm watching game film in sports. I'm watching game film in school, how you're interacting with teachers, who's getting in trouble. I'm watching how parents are reacting to the social scene, and I'm watching those reps. And I'm like going, man, I'm learning to navigate a bunch of stuff here.
Yeah.
And sometimes not for the better, probably. Sometimes the end around was probably being learned there too. But man, I think about what a blessing that was. I talk a lot about it in my book about having that seat and having that view and vantage that my older brothers didn't get. And it was a
Yeah.
big deal to me. And it definitely set me up for a lot of advantage in my professional life.
No, I love that share that perspective because like where you are in the sibling category, it definitely shapes you as a person, and then you get to see different things. So yeah, like my youngest brother, he's been able to see, the good, the bad, the roadmaps of, his older siblings, myself included. And then me, like I've had to learn a lot of things on the fly and share it. And then my sister, who being like the only girl, like her dynamic. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to the birth order book. I think my sister, tough. I only have one daughter out of my 5, right? So
Okay.
4 boys always looking over, like, good luck her getting a date. Like it's tough. She's got 3 older brothers before her. And so, I always told my wife, I'm like, the good news is I think the boys are going to look out for her. The bad news is she's going to choose her college somewhere about 10,000 miles away in some other country because that way she can have her life, and
Yeah.
get some autonomy without someone looking over her shoulder. But yeah, it's a cool dynamic. Let's talk a little bit about. I want to come back to your parents because, um, man, they worked really hard to provide for you, and Amobi,
Mhm.
you developed your skill and you became a soccer phenom in California, which is no joke, by the way. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
#1 state for soccer in the country,
Oh, thank
and
you. A lot of people say it's the other states, so but I'm
well,
glad you
they're
said that.
confused. That's all.
Yeah.
They're just confused, and I'll take some slack for that later. But like it's no joke, and it's got a long history, right? So, but I think the other side of this, you get a scholarship to UCLA. I mean, this is a Pac-10 school. This is one of the top branded collegiate programs, and you want to call your parents after a year and like, hey, mom and dad, I'm turning pro. You know what? Hell with education. Like I know you said that was kind of important, but I'm following the money. Like,
Yeah.
what is their reaction at this point?
It was unique because everything happened so fast. And to backtrack a little bit, so I went to residency, so which was the U17 men's national team program. So in high school, I had already been traveling for the youth national teams, but then in high school, I actually went to like boarding school. We had residency where we used IMG Academy to compete ultimately for the U17 World Cup. And then UCLA came around, and I was, playing for the youth national team still. And then the opportunity came to go pro. And they were like, I had the opportunity to go pro out of high school. And they were like, no, you have to finish high school at least. So then I went to college. And then, after my season, so not even a year in, the opportunity to go pro. And they were like, why would you waste the UCLA, full ride scholarship to go pro after, you know, 6 months? And it just happened, and you got to strike when the iron's hot. You know, Fortunately and unfortunately, I was offered an opportunity where my education was going to be covered. Um, Obviously, UCLA is such a prestigious school, but you can only be a pro for so long, and you never know when those opportunities will come again. And at the time, especially with soccer, where it was at when I was going pro, um, we weren't NBA, NFL, MLB type money, but the contract at the time was, pretty good. So I was like, all right, take advantage of this opportunity where you can strike while the iron's hot, and let the chips fall where they may after that.
Yeah. That's it's awesome. And you took an advantage of a program. I think is it called Generation Adidas? Is that right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah. So
so
at the
so
time, I signed the Generation Adidas contract.
yeah, and that is providing education for athletes that are, hey, they're branding and they're heading for pro contracts yet in the background, which is such a big deal now with like online learning and other things you can
Exactly.
do remote. And you chose that. You didn't be like, oh yeah, I'll come back to that when I'm 35 and my career's over.
Yeah.
You chose your off seasons to continue education, online learning, and enrolled at the University of Louisville.
Yes, sir. So that was the promise I had to make for my parents to let me go pro. They were like,
Ah, there it is.
yes, yeah, they were like, yeah, well, I'll do it when I'm done playing, and then when you're done, you
Yeah.
start your family, you have all these responsibilities. So they're like, no, you have to do it while you're playing. So I spent in my off seasons and even while I was playing, the slow and steady approach, um, and went from there. So fortunately, I had a good team behind me, and we utilized the resources available to us. Where I originally started at the Community College of Philadelphia, online. There are a couple of classes in person that I, would miss a couple of classes for games, and then was able to transfer my credits and then finish my bachelor's degree at University of Louisville, which had a unique program that allowed for, work as compensated for credits. It was a very fortunate situation that University of Louisville allowed for me to
Yeah.
do, and very grateful that I was able to sign the Generation Adidas contract, that allowed or enticed younger underclassmen to go pro early, and yeah, reaping the benefits still to this day.
Hey, shout out to Adidas. Nice, nice.
Yeah.
All right, nice. Always been a big supporter of the football, the whole culture, the careers, everyone. They've been a huge supporter from the word go. It's pretty cool. I also want to talk about like Philly's your first team, right? They
Yeah.
they they're the ones who draft you, signed you as a 19-year-old, going to go pro. Obviously, they'd seen you from the 17U Nationals, so aware of who you are. Now, are you a kid like playing on a pro team and going to junior college classes over at the community college? Are you like going to class or is this online?
So most of it was online. There was one or two classes I had to take in person. And luckily that was by like year two, year three. And it was funny because I think one person noticed me. It wasn't like Joel and B going to class. It was just me. So like one person noticed, and then I think my professor at the time was like started realizing because I told him I had to miss like a couple sessions, and he was like, "What are you talking?" And then he was like, "Oh, like one of the executive staffs had told him like, "Yo, this is a young professional. You kind of have to work with him," and he was really helpful in making sure I graduated from that associate's degree program.
You know, it's amazing. Like, I think a lot of people miss this. I think a lot of people miss the fact that one, uh, people are willing to help you out. Like
Oh
they
yeah,
are like beef upright and forthright about what you're doing up front. Hey, this is what my responsibilities are. Like I'd love to be here, but if I shirk those, they actually pay my contract. So, I really have to do that. And it's a very interesting thing, Amobi, and I really want to give you mad props and respect and I'm very proud of the fact that you took advantage of this system because and the generation agreement because um when we're young in baseball, there's a lot of players that are offered pro contracts out of high school, and they want athletes to sign because I'll tell anybody who will listen, like when you go, you know what it's like. You go to a pro workout, like UCLA is limited. You can practice about 20 hours a week, and you can
yeah,
work out about 5, and you got to go to class, and you got to do these other things, and like, oh, welcome to the soccer club. We'll be on the field or around the club about 7 or 8 hours a day, and you're like,
yeah,
that's just standard operating video. I mean, the best coaching in the world, and they're all right there on top of you, and coachability becomes a big deal, but it's a full-time job, and
exactly.
so I don't remember the statistics of the amount of baseball players that go back and get that education, but you really nailed it when, kids go in at 18 and you play 7 years, you're 25, you've met somebody, you've got a significant other, you're starting a family, and then they're like, oh, you have no education and now you don't have a job and you've got some responsibilities now. It's like, oh, I should go back to school with this credit program that I have, which is going to put me working 20 hours a day because I got to go to school for 5 or 6 hours. I got to work 8 hours to take care of my family. And that all of a sudden, nothing gets easy from there. And I think the major leagues, I want to say a college degree is like 1.5% of the players have a college degree.
No,
So,
I think I definitely would bet on that as well, and I think especially with the program, not to like shed light to it, but I think they bet against that. They like, all right, the
oh, yeah.
players are gonna like, they're not gonna do it. Well,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
The numbers are staggering. Like I want to say it was like 98%. 98% do not ever utilize it's really a crazy number. And you're
yeah,
thinking like, of course, when you're 18, I'm sure, your parents were like, "Oh, right, free education. Yes."
yeah,
And you're like, "I'm going to do that when I'm done." And they were like, "Oh no." Your
yeah,
parents had it right. They were like, "Oh, heck no. You're going to
yeah,
get enrolled. You're going to start moving on this. This isn't going to be, hey, someday. This is going to be like this day." And
exactly,
um and I love that. I think that's part of that discipline, right? It's part of that structure that we have to have. You're a young person, you can manage it, manage your time, and what are you going to give up? Probably social stuff, drinking, social thing that you wouldn't have time for now because you got to go to class and do your
exactly,
work, and that only serves you as an athlete, right? I mean, what we do become very good at in pro sports is time management becomes
facts,
crazy, man. Like this is why people hire athletes because they can manage time like no other. They've got a level of efficiency that most people don't have because they know what kind of work they can get done in 8 hours, and they know how to rest and recover. They understand the value of it, and it's definitely a superpower. But yeah, I definitely wanted to hear about how that was for your parents. That's a big deal. But you don't stop. What's impressive of Moby, you do the junior college, then you do the Louisville program, getting two specialties in organized leadership and a minor in business administration, which is awesome. So you're a business guy. Then you get another degree, master's degree in legal studies from ASU, so you can start becoming your own agent. Is that what you're thinking?
yeah. So something like that, just trying to like negotiate better. But it was part of, like you said, the time management, and it was a great way to balance, the strenuous life of a professional athlete, but then also like, all right, have something to take your time off and, stay away from like the social distractions. And then I had leftover reimbursement. So I was like, if you don't use it, you lose it. So
Right.
I ended up getting my master's. I was taking executive education courses. I even did like a certificate program. So just trying to maximize the resources that were given to me, and stemming just from the opportunity and just me as a person. And it's helped me not only while I was playing throughout my career, but then also now as I've transitioned outside of it.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, that's big. Let's talk about, you leveling up as a player because of your continued study and your intelligence and working at these different things and stretching your boundaries of knowledge. And there's a lot of cross training in sports. We
Mhm.
know this, right? And our bodies, and part of the cross training of sport that I love is that we talked about this maybe offline, is that hockey and soccer have a lot of like philosophical things that are going a lot of the same. Like when you're setting up plays and defensively, the strategies are very similar. It's a one ball, one puck, a lot of players, only one item, big goal. You got a goalie. Obviously, the goal looks a lot bigger in soccer than it does in
Yeah.
hockey with these monsters now that are in the net. And like but the scoring is the same. It's low scoring, it's strategic, it's challenging. It's a big deal to get points. And it's a very challenge in discipline and structure from scoring and system defense. And intellectually, these things are crossing over from other things we're doing. So did you find that as you were leveling up in your intelligence and learning from all these college professors who are brilliant, who have specialties, and you're learning these things, did you feel like that really leveled you up as an athlete?
Oh, most definitely. It definitely transferred and crossed over in terms of all right, how I think about like the business of sports first and foremost, and then just like me personally, like how I establish what's the best way to say how I establish my position within my team. In terms of being like a leader. I was fortunate enough to be captain of most of my teams that I played for, and or player representative for the CBA negotiations. So whether it's like trying to re-sign a contract and like saying, "Oh no, there's a different way to go about this." It definitely helped and gave me perspective versus just always being like tunnel vision into, I got to play, got to win. Obviously that helps, but having a widened lens gave me better positioning and clarity in terms of my career.
Well, two things I want to really point to. One is your basis of you're still family oriented, and
Hmm.
and and I think your parents, probably there's a lot of people who would be like, "Wow, I bet when you got on your own, you were so happy to be away from all that stern living, and you realize the value that structure provided you to hockey stick, your ability to keep going and rising because you knew the discipline and structure it was going to take, and someone provided that for you. So I assume you recognize that blessing. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, definitely recognized it, and it definitely helped me, especially like my rookie year, because growing up, played, started, all that, but my rookie year I barely played, and having that discipline and that structure of like, all right, you just got to keep knocking on the door, keep showing up, and take advantage of your moment when you do get that moment. Definitely helped. If I was like, didn't have stability, didn't have structure, didn't have the things that I had, yeah, I would have fell by the wayside very quickly before it even started. So having that discipline, having that structure, and that balance allowed for me to, finally break through, and then the rest is history from there.
How about do you like Ted Lasso?
Oh yeah, he's great. The
I
fact
love
like
it. Yeah, I love Ted
it's funny
Lasso.
because it's a sports show, but they don't like the sports is like so animated, it's
Secondary.
fake, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
still are invested. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's the sport of it all feels like fifth, sixth, seventh importance, right?
Yeah,
It's something,
exactly.
but it's there. It's always an underlying theme. But I think about like early on in the show, you have Roy Kent as a captain. He's an introverted guy. He's not a loud talker. He lets his play do his talking, right?
Mhm.
And speaks infrequently. And when he's going to speak, everyone kind of like, oh, shh, Roy's going to say something, right? And so as an introvert, it's very interesting to me that people would be like, "Oh, I'm choosing this as our captain." What do you think were the characteristics of Amobi Okugo that everyone said like, "Hey, man, I can get behind this guy"? What were the things that you felt said like, "This is the guy who needs to wear the C on his sweater"?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say, or great point rather. I would say, I, and this has always been something I've been known for. I can. It's not to say like friends with everybody, but I fit into different uh, groups. So, for example, growing up, I was hanging out with the nerds, I guess, but also with the jocks, but then also with like the foreigners. So being able to connect with so many different people and make people feel comfortable is a strong suit that I have, that I'm willing to like hang my hat on. And then obviously just when I'm on the field, like my intensity. So my intensity shows up. So, always going to work hard, always going to, put in the extra effort, always going to go to bat for my teammates. And I think those things immediately stood out. There's definitely things that I could have worked on or continue to work on. Like my passion shows. So I'm very aggressive when I'm on the field. But uh, I was able to learn to control it as I went pro and um, galvanize a group. Like I've always been able to galvanize a group and get people to follow or listen or get behind uh, 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 a mantra and kind of go from there.
Awesome. I think one of the things that people miss in sports, especially pro sports, is man, it's like a master class in DEI, right? Like, I mean,
Oh yeah,
you have people from everywhere. You've got 7 languages in a locker room. You've got, people from every different socioeconomic background, different raised, totally different ways, different religions. I mean, you name it, you
yeah,
got it. And what I love to tell people is like, man, there's one thing that brings us all together. Like it's all about that team and that we put that goal out there, and then we put our process of how we're going to come together and be great together. And what a challenge it is, Omobi, being a great player and a superstar at a Pac-10 school to wow, I'm a role player and I might see some minutes at the end of this game if
oh yeah,
we're up 3 games, up 3 goals, down 3 goals, to got to continue working. The role will change, but if I don't do anything about it, the role won't, right? And
yeah,
so recognizing that those two dynamics that are always shifting and changing, and new players come in with
yeah,
their different backgrounds and different ideas, and some of them are coming like from the role of, and I like this too, how they did this in Ted Lasso. Roy Kent, the former Chelsea superstar,
yeah,
to now he's a second league kind of washed up guy, like, and second league champions. I mean, it's not like terrible, but
yeah,
like, he's definitely not accustomed to what he's been. And man, the dynamics are ever changing, ever flowing. And I think that really gives us a lot of strength as chameleons to really work into our environment. And I think more so, I would say, Amobi, we have a genuine respect that people are very similar to us and
hmm
very different, and it's awesome. Like,
exactly.
you don't need to be like me. Like, I don't need to look like you. You don't need to look like me. Like, we're playing for the same thing, and there is no way I'm not going to pass a ball to a player because he grew up in a different socioeconomic background than I did, or he doesn't wear the shoes I like to wear,
Yeah,
or, this is dumb crap that people make up in their mind that the best in the world will never even consider it, because it doesn't matter wherever, who you are, who your parents are, how much money you have, purple, green, or yellow. It doesn't matter. If you can play and you're going to help the team and provide impact and be a value adder, not a subtractor, an adder to those teams, they want you. They
exactly.
want you on that team.
No, you're exactly right. And yeah, it's been so many life lessons that I've been able to learn from sport that I apply today. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head about them.
Yeah. Check out Leading with Teams. I talk about all these things in Leading
Love it.
Winning Teams,
I think
in the
I
new
already
book.
pre-ordered my book.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Amobi, I love it. Perfect. I will sign that for you when you get it. So, I am super excited. Let's talk a little bit about one thing that most people don't know about you. Pro athlete. You've never had coffee.
Yeah, so it's funny because I would do like networking meetings and I'd be like ordering hot chocolate.
Yeah.
And they're like, my friends would joke like, "Yo, you're like a little kid. Like, what are you ordering hot chocolate for?"
Yeah,
It's like
it's
that's
so funny. It's so funny that you say that. I just had a meeting with this guy who owns a very sizable firm, and we're having this big meeting, and I'm like, we're sitting at a coffee shop, his choice. And I'm like, oh man, so and I go up there with my freaking stupid order of everything, trying to get it healthy as I can, right? Which is still not healthy. And he's like, yeah, I'll take a hot cocoa. And I'm like, what are you, 11? Like, what is you have hot cocoa? Hey, are you gonna get in? And we're good buddies. So
yeah.
I'm like, are you gonna do like mini marshmallows or what are you gonna do, man? Yeah. And I just it's so funny that we judge it. Like, what do I know? What do I
Yeah.
care? Either like, and we have fun with it. But it's odd. And he's like going, yeah, I don't do coffee, man. I don't think it's
Yeah.
good for me. And he's a really he's not just a distance runner. He's an ultra guy. So
Oh, okay. That's
yeah,
so
like he's
funny.
on it.
Like the distance, like I've seen a correlation between very successful people, and obviously you work with a bunch of successful people, and like distance and ultra runners, and just
Yeah.
challenging themselves to the
Yep.
highest degree. So if he doesn't drink coffee, I can get some of that success to rub off on me too.
It's funny that you say that, Amobi. Isn't that the truth though, man? Like the best in the world want to keep challenging themselves.
Yeah.
Like you challenge yourself all through this professional level, but you're not stop challenging yourself now. Like you're building a brand, you're building a company, and it's challenging. Like there's heartache and headache and there's hurdles to go over. And you're like, wait a minute, man, I wasn't even a track star. What's up with the hurdles, man? I don't know how to get it. And you're like,
It's-
yeah, like welcome to the new world. And you gotta learn. And so I think what happens is we get so tied to doing hard things and mastering um, how winners find a way
yeah.
that we can't stop finding something to win at.
That's true. You're exactly right, and that's
Yeah,
why we gotta get your book because, like, last year I signed up for a marathon. It's like if you could
yeah,
do hard things, physically, mentally, spiritually, business is like the easy thing. So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how that works, and I don't know, man. I just heard one of the psychologists was talking about it. Jordan Peterson. He
Okay.
was like, dude, we're men and we're built for it. Like
Yeah.
you should never be comfortable. Challenge yourself all the time. Like if you're comfortable, watch out. Like
Yeah.
nothing good's gonna happen now. Like you got to get yourself uncomfortable and do something else. And I think this is why you see us crazy fools doing like, hey, a tough mutter. Yeah, let's do what? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go scale a wall that's 40 foot high. Like what am I doing? Like it's crazy, but we know challenge and we're not afraid of it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Let's talk a couple about some challenges you've had along the way. I mean, I love this, the, the show is based on winners find a way. So winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. What's one of the biggest challenges you had to win at when you were like, holy cow, this is not working. All the data is like I'm losing. I got to find another way.
Yeah, I think the one that immediately comes to mind was 2018. I was a free agent, for a whole year. So when people ask you, you say you're a free agent, which is like you're between teams, but essentially you're unemployed. No team wants you. Free agent is just a nice way to say you're unemployed as an athlete, and
Yeah.
no team wants you, or it's just not working out. And I literally had to all right, figure out, all right, how do I win in this situation? And it took a lot of soul searching. Luckily, we tie back to like having that structure, that stability. I had to have, luckily, I'm a pretty humble person, don't have a big ego. So they had no problem moving back home and downsizing. It's not that I couldn't, live on my own, but, I was a free agent. There wasn't a reason to be spending money frivolously if I didn't have to. So downsizing for the uprise and that year was really eye opening from the standpoint of like digging deep to win. And fortunately, uh, you know, that next year, 2019, I re-signed with the team. My business had been growing, and a lot of things that happened in 2018, me as a person, I was able to evolve. I was able to innovate. I was able to grow. And that doesn't happen unless 2018 happens. So obviously in the moment, I'm like, yo, what is going on? This is crazy. But then looking back on it, it was such a pivotal moment for me. And it helped me realize, put into perspective, you never want to let sports drive you. You want to use sports as a vehicle to go where you want to go. And
Good advice.
it was always I was just like a reminder, and I always had that mindset. And you're like, yeah, I'm not that thing's not gonna happen to me, but then it does happen, and it's like, all right, just that reminder you needed. So 2018 for sure was a pivotal moment. There's other times, you're dealing with injuries as an athlete as well, but I think from a business perspective, one that comes to mind is just like burning the boats. So sort of a blessing and a curse. I do like structure, do like stability. So like making sure like, all right, I want to make sure I have a job. And, people have different opinions on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship, wait till you have a job, or no, you just got to go all in. And I was dipping my toe in like, all right, have a job, contract work. And then my other toe was in, you got to go all in. And, a lot of back and forth had happened, and it was like, all right, this is my runway. I've fortunately had a good enough career where I've saved, a good money. I have a good war chest. I got to go all in. And like, once I really went all in, like things started to move forward. So, yeah, those are a couple moments that definitely come to mind for my personal situation.
Yeah, I love that. I love the advice. You build the structure. I think so cool to be a free agent in the off season. It's just never cool to be a free agent when it's like teams are like 20-10. And you're like, hey, I'm a free agent.
I'm
Like,
gonna steal that one.
wait,
Yeah, for
is
sure.
it the season already started?
Yeah.
So then you gotta accept the unemployment part, right? And
Yeah.
so you're like, oh yeah, they are playing and I'm not. So I guess I'm unemployed, right? And so
Worse is people asking you, who do you play for? And you're like, oh, the season's going on. It's like, yo, when do we watch your game? I was like, yeah, it's
yeah,
not.
I'm in between teams right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, yeah. It is definitely a chat. It's a tough shot to the heart. I mean, it's
Ooh,
a tough
yeah.
shot mentally. Man, I went through this. I was 20, maybe 8 years old, and I had a year left on a contract, and just went to the World Series, and the club I was with didn't renew it. And I'm like,
Unbelievable.
man, we've been to two of the last three World Series. I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job around here, and and they had their reasons, and I was like, wow. And yeah, I think I immediately went into new structure, new business. When I started preparing the fields, right?
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't going to harvest right away. But man, that really set me up for the next entrepreneurial venture, and really learned a lot. Learned how to make money on my own, and some of the structure that gave me confidence that I could make money outside of a contract. I
Exactly.
also needed a new identity because I think the depression was, man, I'm Trent, the sports guy and the baseball coach, and I'm an MLB guy. So if I'm in between teams, and I'm in between teams right now in the middle of the season. It's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like you're a baseball guy. Like, and so that became a reality that really, really, it 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 helped me realize I'd gone a little far away from what I knew my parents taught me, which was, you know you're not what you do, and you're a person who is a believer, who treats people well, who's from the Midwest, who is going to treat people with respect and work hard and do all those things, and all those things I knew about myself. But I drifted off that identity to, instead of embracing my values, to embracing this minimal fame and minimal fortune, of being with good teams and some success that probably wasn't anything to do with my own, but I certainly attached myself to that success. And man, that was a real shot. It was a real shot to my heart, real shot to my gut. and probably a great time to have at 27, 28, as opposed to 45,
Yeah.
where I probably would have been really pretty deep off the rails and limited in some of my tools, because man, from that point on, I told myself I will never stop upskilling. I will never stop growing, learning. And like, I didn't like school, Moby. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
love it. Like, it was kind of easy for me, but like, I didn't love it. I love the social aspect, but studying and reading, I don't know if I read a book before I was 23 years old and owned a business. And then all of a sudden I was like, man, I got to start reading books so I can learn what I need to do.
Oh, hilarious.
Isn't that
That's
crazy?
hilarious. Yeah.
So you start developing this ideation, not only, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but even while you're playing, because you're realizing these contracts, I want to make sure I'm not getting hosed. I want to make sure that I know what they're talking about. I want to be in the know, and I want to be fully present. And you do a lot of things on, teaching people, how to do this A to Z, how to do good partnerships. Um, talk to me a little bit about some of the superpowers you developed in the firm.
That's appreciate that. So for me, I think one of the superpowers that I've been able to develop is ideation. So coming up with different ideas on how athletes can become enterprises specifically. So whether it's an athlete that is very well spoken, they're the ones that's called upon for the interviews. They're doing the community events. All right, let's figure out a way to build a playbook to build a speaking business. I truly believe every athlete has a unique story that they need to share, and speaking is a way to do that. That's something that you do very well at a high level, and you could talk about the benefits, not only from a monetary standpoint, but becoming a thought leader, becoming a power player, just building your voice. That's one way. Or something, for example, a lot of athletes will do these fashion walks, and it's like, oh, it's great to like promote all these other brands that you want to wear and spend money on, but why not create your own merch and apparel line that you can communicate with your audience, with your fan base, and that they can support you so that you can support different things. So we come up with different ideas that help athletes become an enterprise. And it doesn't have to be strictly from a monetary standpoint. It could be from a transition standpoint, by via networking, via leveraging relationships, different things like that. Another way where I think I've differently excelled is project management, and that's just a combination of things that I've been able to do from my own experience, with the time management, you know, developing different businesses. And it's not like I went to study this in school, although I am currently taking, when you talk about upskilling, I am currently taking certification with project management. But seeing things through from A to Z, and figuring out the players that need to be involved, or the stakeholders that need to be involved to help things go from vision to actually execution. And I feel like, due to the experiences and insights that I've been able to gain, I'm very well versed in that.
It's awesome. And even now, I mean, even now, you've admitted that, hey, like, I've never had to close deals. I mean, I've always been wanted. Now I'm still wanted, but we gotta serve these clients, and we want to close deals. I highly recommend Matthew Pollard's The Introvert's Edge. If you've never heard Matthew, Matthew tells a story about just on the edge of having to learn to sell, and he's an introvert. He's like, whoa, that's not what introverts, they should not be in sales, engineering, accounting. That's where introverts belong. And yet he's saying and makes a case that introverts make the best salespeople. And he's like, man, I studied it all on YouTube videos. I learned how to sell on YouTube videos, and I learned structuring, and I knew had all these other skills that would help me go faster to learn. But working all week on, and then practicing all weekend and upskilling till, because this is the only way you're gonna eat
Yeah,
what you kill when you're in sales.
exactly.
And so it's an inspiring story, and I love the fact that you're still leaning into the areas like, hey, I got to get better at this. We want to be stronger. And I love the burn the ships attitude, right? Like, you decide, hey, this is the way we're gonna go, and we're all in. I love the song by For King and Country. It's a great tune. Like, um, but man, I mean, there is a lot of people have talked to me about in their history about um, having a backup plan, and I'm like, man, the real people that have really gained that big top 2% is they decide what they're going to do, and they surround themselves with the people that are going to help them get there, and they find a way to do it with no secondary plan. Like, we're burning the ships, man. This is it. And they may pivot along the way to some
Yeah.
version of it, but at the end of the day, it looks something like where they started. And the backup plan is so far down that it's never brought up.
Yeah, exactly. It's never brought up because then you're giving you'll give yourself excuses to shift the goalposts, I believe.
Yep.
And so for me, it's like, all right, you have obviously worst comes to worst scenario, but like you said, it's so far away. You try to remove it from your mindset so that I'm going to make this work. And if not, you're gonna find ways to pivot. Just that's how business is, and we've pivoted so many times. And that's one of the recommendations I would make. Forget about the logo, forget about the website, forget about what problem are you solving and how are you finding clients. Like that's kind of where we've been able to be successful. Now it's about, all right, how do we close the deal? Which is, I love what you talked about, the introvert's edge. I'm going to get that book ASAP. And it's like, I know I can make people feel comfortable, but am I making them feel comfortable enough to, sign on the dotted line, to send that invoice? So that's kind of where I'm currently at.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, you've really identified a pain. There's a lot of athletes who are fighting some financial education, lack of experience, all sorts of different things there. And then you've got the challenge of how do these brands connect with these athletes who have influence and this and that. There's a lot of pain going on, and to be a solutions provider to close those deals is going to be a big deal.
Mhm.
And your education, just thinking through the athlete CEO, I love that term. And it was frustrating for me when I first started in, because I was like, why aren't the athletes all on, doing contracts with their LLC? Like, you don't want to be
Yeah.
a W-2 employee. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Like, you could do so much more, and like, oh, that's not how it works exactly. They're hired employees. So, so the structure in itself of a professional agreement already stacked against you,
Yeah.
because I don't really want to be an employee, especially at that money. That's a lot of high taxation,
Yeah.
whew.
Oof.
So yeah, you were definitely a highly paid employee, and man, you could see the tax numbers coming out of these checks, going, holy cow, you
Yeah.
know. Do I have my only did they name a military division after me now? Because like I feel like I paid in a lot, and so like so I think there's a real cool learning there, and I really appreciate, man, that you're leaning into people's pain and helping these young athletes, moving up, and it's only getting younger.
Oh,
No,
it's only
Moby,
getting younger.
these kids got to start thinking about this now at 13, 14. I mean, even we were having this discussion last night about how hockey, people go away from home pretty early, 13, 14 years old, and really struck me. And again, coming back to the Ted Lasso, where he's burning his blankie, right?
Yeah.
That his grandfather gave him the last time he saw him. He's like, yeah, say something. I was 9. He's like, I went away to an academy at 9 years old to become a pro. Like, I mean, that's almost like somebody else raising you, man. I mean, I can't even imagine it in my mind of not having parental influence and just coaches, who
Yeah.
who have their own agenda, right? For my development and everything else. Like, and it's beyond me, and tough to measure to me what that must look like.
No, it's really tough. And for me personally, like you said, like sports helped me grow up so much, where it's like not only did I learn from my parents, but then I learned from, what soccer has, given me, the competition and being exposed to different cultures, different environments, different, just backgrounds. It's something that in the moment you don't take for, you're not grateful for, but looking back on it, you wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Um, yeah, for sure. So let's wrap here. Amobi, thank you so much for coming on, talking Winners Find a Way. So fun always. Really just have a mad respect for the game, for you, for your transition from professional sport to entrepreneur, what you're doing now for these kids. Again, Moby, tell them where they can find you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to have me and share my story. Yeah, you can find me at Amobi Says on Instagram and Twitter, on LinkedIn, Amobi Okugo, and then www.amobiokugo.com if you want to connect me with me directly, or serve.consulting from the business standpoint. And yeah, willing to help, willing to serve, and looking forward to possibly connecting with anyone that reaches out.
Perfect. For everybody else, thank you so much for joining us on Winners Find a Way. Looking so forward to the next show. And of course, you can always join us at leadershipity.com. We have a great new retreat going on. If you've never seen Italy, all my clients are business owners. Come to Italy with this summer. We have a fabulous 6-day trip planned in southern Italy. Going to be great wine. We're going to visit the Passion of the Christ where they filmed it. There's just amazing hikes there into the caves, which are, well over documented, over 3,000 years old, and people actually still live there, which is amazing. Going to be some great learnings on AI and leadership development, team development. So there'll be a good write-off for the business. So, you got to get to
Yeah.
Italy and do some learning. So that'll be good. And we'd love to have you join us. And of course, check out my new book, Leading Winning Teams, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all the other networks right now, digitally and online. So that'll arrive here this summer. So super excited about that. For my guest, Amobi Okugo, so thrilled to have you join us on Winners Find a Way every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and YouTube Leadershipity channel. And you'll find the podcast on all your major networks. Until next time, Winners Find a Way.